Hello and welcome to the Old Street Labs podcast. This is episode number 5. As always, I'm your host, Rob Woodhead. And on today's podcast, I was lucky enough to speak with the fantastic Kath Hipwell. Kath is the CEO of the Association of British Climbing Walls. This is the trade body that looks after 250 climbing walls across the UK. Really interesting conversation with Kath. We got a bit into her background as a brand strategist, talked about building her own agency and then moving more into things that she loved doing, things like climbing, and then ultimately running the association. We spoke about the association and what it does, the way that it sets the standards for the industry, provides accreditation for the climbing walls, and we also talked about the product that we help build them. This is the incident and near miss reporting tool that allows them to gather now more data on the accidents that happen across the industry. They're able to spot patterns, try and improve safety, reduce paperwork and all that good stuff. So really interesting conversation. We also got into the growth of climbing and the real push for inclusion as well. So hopefully interesting conversation for you all to listen to. As always, love to hear your feedback. And yeah, hope you enjoy today's podcast. Welcome to the Old Street Labs podcast. The human stories behind the tech. From concept to code. Real startup journeys. Hello and welcome back to the Old Street Labs podcast. It's great to have you back with us. On today's pod, we are very lucky to have the fantastic Kath Hipwell. Kath is the CEO of the Association of British Climbing Walls. She's also a very experienced brand strategist and has been shaping stories and systems and communities throughout her career. So Kath, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. So the whole idea of this podcast is to talk about the human stories behind the tech. And so I often start the conversation with talking a little bit about your journey that you've had you've been a brand strategist, you've been an agency leader, and now CEO of the Association of British Climbing Walls. So it'd be interesting to kind of dive into that journey you've had and talk a little bit about the moments that have been, big decision points in your career, I guess.
Great, thanks. Yeah. I've always worked in brand strategy, really. Started out in some big advertising agencies and an agency within the BBC. So I worked on some really interesting brands. Particularly, I enjoyed working on the Times and Sunday Times and the BBC, sort of content brands with amazing stories to tell and just general nosiness into what's going on in the world. It was really enjoyable. But part of that was also, and I always talk about selling orange juice to children, which, doesn't sound that bad really to most people. But to me, that's something I didn't really want to be doing in the agency world. You have to sometimes sell things that you don't believe in. So I eventually left the agency world and set up my own brand strategy agency where I talked about, it was called Campfire Collective, and it was about working with brands and people I would sit around the campfire with, the proverbial campfire, and basically only working on things I really believed in at a sort of deep soul level, if you like. So hence finding my way into climbing, which I love and believe in. So
interesting. So you've gone more towards your passion and more towards things that you believe in, rather than sticking to corporate world, which I think a lot of people have a desire to do, but don't necessarily take that leap.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it literally makes everything interesting, from the P&L to the governance to the most sort of mundane parts of the job. In fact, a lot of what we do is around safety, but actually when it's safety in the context of a sport and activity you're passionate about and want people to share and enjoy, it becomes super interesting, which is, I guess, part of what our project was. So.
Right. And I guess what was the movement from your own agency into the ABC? What was that, because you were associated with them before and you were an avid climber, or was there another reason?
I mean, avid suggests good, doesn't it? So
average.
I've climbed. I like climbing. No, I just had approached one of the climbing walls about, working with them, and then found out this chief exec role was coming up at the ABC. And it totally ticked the boxes in terms of sport. And I felt like there was an opportunity to do some work around inclusion, which has become part of our mission, with me sort of leading on that piece of the strategy, bringing diversity into our mission and bringing new people into the sector, into climbing, into the industry, trying to promote diversity from grassroots through to board level representation. So it just felt like a really great opportunity to have some impacts in an area I was really interested in, sport and climbing. So.
Fantastic. It might be a good moment to just pause and explain exactly what the ABC is and does. I mean, obviously, it's called the Association of British Climbing Walls, so it's kind of does exactly what it says on a tin to a certain extent, but maybe you could give it a little bit more flavour of the work it does.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a member organisation, a trade association, really. So we represent about 250 climbing walls across the UK, and we set the national safety standards, which are to do with professionalism and structure of climbing walls and how staff operate, and through to safeguarding. And those standards protect the climbing walls customers because they make them safer places, and they protect the industry by reducing accidents. And we've really seen our industry compared to others, which I won't particularly name, but where those safety standards are absent, get themselves into sort of uninsurable positions and, significant accidents you will have read about in the newspapers. But we've been quite good at self-regulating and everyone buying into these standards. And we've recently launched an accreditation scheme, which takes that a step further and gives people an actual formal mark of quality and an accreditation that helps them with their insurance and things like that. So.
Amazing. We'll come back to insurance and some of that piece later on, because I think that's quite interesting. So you went from this brand strategy piece into the ABC. What do you bring from that? What do you bring from that formal world of brand and storytelling, I guess, into the ABC role?
Well, in my brief bit of prep, which wasn't about the theme tune, no, a strategy underpins everything, I would say. And as a strategist, I think that's really true. And it's actually an amazingly sort of foundational skill, I think. And I'm really pleased that I got to have a lot of my career sort of in that area, learning about strategy. But without a strategy, you're nowhere, I think. Everyone needs to know where they're going. And I really enjoyed my time working with and at the BBC, and we used to talk about editorial positioning and what all the different TV channels or channels in those days stand for, and it helps the world navigate the content and the brands and what you expect from them. And I think a really important thing we used to talk about there was about what you do, but more importantly, what you don't do. So what a particular TV channel would air, but also what they decide not to show, is really important. So just so that clarity. What are we about? What do we do? What actually isn't anything to do with us and is a distraction or confusion? So yes, I think knowing where we're going is really important.
So yeah, okay. So that's, super helpful that you spent a lot of time doing that prior to taking that role then. Do you think that's important for every CEO to have that in their back pocket?
I think so. I think without clarity about where you're going, then your team and your members and everyone you work with doesn't know either. I mean, of course we can do better, and we're actually always trying to communicate with our members better about what we're doing. You know what it's like with projects, even the one we're talking about today. To some extent, you don't want to tell people what you're working on until it's ready and it's beautiful and it's perfect. But also, we're working on trying to improve that communication so people know what we're working on behind the scenes for them and what's coming, and being a bit more transparent around that, I suppose.
I think, yeah, that's a really interesting that double-edged sword where you build in the open and you tell them through the process, and people are then maybe a little impatient to see it and to see what's going on, and then delays happen, and then that can whereas if you then don't do anything, they then look, well, what's going on? You're not doing anything, and yeah, so that's where we fall in as a business is to definitely be a bit more transparent about things, to allow people to see what's going on. Especially with customers, because building tech, and if you're not being open with what's going on, then they can think that you're spending a lot of money but not actually delivering very much. So,
well, 100%. I think I really enjoyed that in our process of working with you, and you didn't set me up to say this, but can we talk about your graph, Rob?
I mean, one of the things we should say, I didn't really caveat this at the beginning, but Kath is a client of mine, a client of Old Street Lab, and we recently built a project which which is going to be part of the conversation. But yeah, we can talk about that graph, absolutely.
So when we got on board working together, one of the introductory graphs that Rob showed was a graph of sort of our likely happiness throughout the process. And there was sort of smiley faces and ecstatic faces. And there was a dip at one point with a sad face. I was like, oh no, what's happening at that stage? I don't like that. And what, do you know, honestly, I'd never had a sad phase. And I do think you guys were super transparent about what was going on. And yeah, I think it was a really positive experience. And like I say, not being paid to say that.
No, thank you, Kath. I appreciate that. It's interesting. So that graph I actually stole from somewhere else because I thought it was really helpful to. It's bringing people along in the conversation a little bit about like what you're speaking about before. I mean, you've got the members of your association and we have clients, so slightly different, but equally keeping people aware of what's going on as you're doing it. Making sure that they understand the decisions you're making as you're going through it as well is really important and helps you along that way. And also to acknowledge that a process of building something or delivering something is not smooth and is not linear from A to B, and that sometimes helps. And also just, if they have some expectation it's not going to be perfect all the way, then when it's okay all the way through, then as you know, it's a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, one of the big things we do is create these industry standards, and we've just released a new one about access and acknowledgement of risk. So if you've been to any vaguely dangerous activity, I'm not quite sure they do it at bowling, but most other activities you have to sign in an acknowledgement of risk at the front door. So that's a really important thing for businesses, and sort of some of the detail in that, will stand up or not in court. And so when we release any of these documents, we do have a workshop and an online session with all of our members just to make sure they're happy with what we are saying and that they're bought into it, and it makes the whole thing more robust and stand up better. So
yeah, makes a lot of sense. Well, now we brought it up, we may as well go into the actual product. So you commissioned a new incident reporting tool. So what drove that decision? What was the reason behind it all in the first place?
Sure. Well, I guess, as I mentioned, we're about safety, which is interesting when you love climbing. And I suppose that's about trying to reduce accidents, reduce risk of accidents. So we a really important word we would never use in climbing, or I'm sure many similar sports, is safe. It's about reducing risk and making things safer as far as we can. Like you can't promise to be safe crossing the road, obviously. So anyway, but what is important is we do make our sport safer and people can enjoy it knowing that it's safe as it can be. And part of that is understanding where the risks lie and educating the whole industry about what happens and learning from every single incident or accident that happens. So you'll know part of our tool is actually about near misses. So there's quite a lot of qualitative data we collect around when things didn't go wrong but could have, and that's really important to learn from. So,
and you had a previous product before, and it was kind of it was reasonably fit for purpose, but you wanted to do more, achieve more with it, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess the previous product was quite static in a sense. So it collected data and it lived in a online repository that could come out as a spreadsheet, but it didn't have a sense of live reporting. And something that's really useful for climbing walls is to understand what's happening in their facility on a daily basis and how they benchmark against the industry. So our new system, as you know, enables climbing walls to see what's happening. It's live data visualizations, who's having accidents, what kind of accidents are they having, how does that benchmark against the industry. There's a really good feature in it where they can literally see where accidents are happening in their facility. So from a climbing wall point of view, you can know if the matting, which we have under our walls, if there's a problem with the matting, perhaps if there's an area where people are getting injured more often. So I think it's a really exciting sort of live tool that people can use on a daily basis to make their experience better and safer, for sure.
Was there a pull from the industry for it, or was it more you realised that it would be a bit more beneficial from the association point of view?
I think it was an obvious thing that needed to be improved, and also because it is so fundamental, the system we have with you feels robust and strong and dependable. And I had to feel really confident in that system because our clients are using it every day. And I wanted to feel safe myself that we had a good system in place for them. But interestingly, we've actually done some research as we were coming out of this project, and people were asking for exactly what we've created, which is a better, liver, more sort of interactive system. So
amazing. So the climbing walls around the UK, the 250 who your members, they're using it for not only incident reporting, but seeing kind of business improvement areas, right? So areas or safety improvements for certainly.
Yeah. And really and where the risks lie as well, for sure, which can change operating procedures or structural changes in a centre.
But a slightly different, more of a question, perhaps for those people out there who are thinking about building tech. What was the process like to find someone to build tech? Because it's not, there's a lot of people out there who can do it. But what was the process like to find someone?
Quite long, actually, to be honest. And I've got another parallel project which equally was long. And I think, well, we actually had a system before that you mentioned, and someone built that, and it was okay, but it wasn't ultimately the right choice longer term. So I do think finding the right partner is so important. We did do quite a broad tender process, spoke to a number of different agencies. Myself, I'm not techie, but I worked with one of our team, Nick Cooper, who is really techie. That's the right word, from a tech background. And actually, I would advise anyone to have both of those skill sets or ways of thinking in your pitch review team, because I think it's actually really important to have also my less techie view on the world. Otherwise you can end up losing the more human interface, I suppose, with people who aren't necessarily understand how it works. So I would say look widely and interview deeply. And I suppose what I brought to it and what I liked about Old Street was actually that very non-techie piece, which was the data visualization. And one of the things we worked quite a lot on, and I used to bring to every meeting, being as it was incident and accident reporting, was we had this body, didn't we? Where you, in the old database, you just had to say, left ankle twisted or whatever. But in the new database, we've got a human form. And my main thing I brought to the whole process was making the human form sort of bang on for what was needed and like interactive. And that was really kind of core, I think, to the functionality, that it feels really intuitive and nice. But like I say, I think that's very much a non-techie bring to the process. And my Nick on my team did lots and lots of other very, very useful things. But yeah, that balance of people, I think, is good.
I agree. And in other projects we run, I bring in sometimes fractional CTOs, so some people who can spend some time with the clients we work with. It's an independent voice. It's someone who understands the tech, understands the decisions being made through the process, and also is able to translate to yourself or a founder exactly why decisions are being made and why certain paths are being gone down, which maybe initially might take a bit longer, but in the long term might prove to be beneficial for the kind of the architecture or whatever it may be.
Oh, okay.
So
is that if they haven't got a Nick already?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's not always needed, but often when it's a bit more complex and people require just that. It's also a third party who can verify our decision making without because it's easy for me to say, well, we should build this, we should build this, we should build this, and then the client's like, oh, I don't know if he's non-technical, or if they're non-technical, it's difficult to understand it.
Yeah, so, I know that's how I would. Yeah, I think that sounds a good idea.
Yeah, no, I think your recommendation for having someone like that around is pretty good.
Yeah.
So the system's been out, being used, in the wild for a while now. Have you seen? Have you had much feedback? Have you seen the kind of some data coming through? What's been your thoughts of it so far?
Well, we've had brilliant uptake, to be honest. Loads of excitement and interest around it. We've had probably 5-fold uptake on the previous system, but we're still in the first 6 months, so people are still uploading data and getting used to the system. But I think generally it's been really positive. We tend to do webinars and things when we launch new content, or in this case technology, and again, really engage. People were really engaged with what we're doing. I think most of the people on the webinar did then go on to sign up to use it. And actually, again, what was really useful was there were some builds that you only get once you're out in the wild about, some improvements which you have already implemented that make it even better. I think actually one of the ones was this reporting about particular areas of the climbing wall, which we talked about before, and actually, super important for climbing walls. So just, it's been really good being live. It's working fantastically, and just sort of subtle improvements happening.
It's good, yeah. So a lot of the time with our clients, we kind of let them off into the wild and they then kind of use these tools in anger and see what actually people come back with. And it's nice to hear that people are using it and using it effectively, and they're coming back with feedback, which is a really positive sign. It means they're engaging with it and wanting to improve it, which is great. Mm-hmm. We talked earlier a little bit about the insurance and some of the things like that. What does that aspect come from? Is that kind of the data that you're pulling out of it, you're going to be able to use to put in regulations or talk to law insurance businesses? How does that work?
Some of it's very much a legal requirement. So climbing walls do have to document accidents, as lots of other businesses do, that happen. There's also RIDDOR reporting if there's a workplace accident. So some of it is just quite simply a legal requirement to document. And the system we have allows people to upload. Well, you can sign it. The injured party can sign within the system. The reporting party can sign with the system. You can upload all the paperwork. So the climbing walls love the fact that it's all in one place, because they were quite literally having to fill things in online and have bits of paper and scan bits of paper. And, it's just a bit of a mess. So an insurer, I haven't heard actually of, I guess we're not at the point where that's come through that insurers have been asking because we're quite newly launched. But I think that's going to be really smooth when that is required, because it's all just there. It's in the system, photos of where the accident happened. It's going to make the whole process a lot smoother. And I think feedback about all of our standards and guidance and this incident reporting is that it gives peace of mind to climbing walls. If you've got it all in place, you've got your paperwork, you've got the signature, it's all there, where it is. So if that call does come, it's not stressful, it's just a process.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's not a scramble to gather the data from different places with different sheets and things. It's actually all centrally located.
Yeah.
And I guess the insurers, or I guess, is there a broader regulation point here of what's required of the walls if the safety is seen as a bit, or is not? I guess you're starting to understand the safety of these places a bit better. Does that make any difference to the overall regulation?
Well, we as an industry have been self-regulated for many years, and the intention is to stay ahead of that by putting in things like this and our industry standards so that we stay as safe as we can be and that there isn't a need for more external regulation. But we do work with environmental health and government departments and local authorities and things like that. So there is certainly that connection, and this sort of data is the sort of thing that they might ask of us for sure.
Okay, so it makes sense. You're staying ahead of it so that they don't come and regulate you. I'm sure other industries might be like that, who are a bit more gung ho about things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what does the future hold for the ABC? What's next on the journey for the next few years?
Yeah. Well, I think continue to drive professionalism, because that's the other side of safety for us. So I think there's lots of really interesting things to do about career pathways and supporting people in climbing becoming a really exciting and viable longer term career pathway. So there's things about education, training, CPD, pay levels, all of that. So that's something we can work on a national association point of view, which then helps with inclusion as well. So we've been talking a little bit about apprenticeships and supporting that at a more national level. That's something we're looking towards. Transparency, haven't done it yet, but that's definitely something we're thinking about. And I think increasing and continuing to drive around inclusion. We've just had a really exciting event last week called Aim to Change, which was about committing to making positive change around inclusion for people with disabilities in climbing. And there's quite a lot of complexity around that, but we had a really exciting session around visually impaired people climbing, or we were learning British Sign Language for climbing.
Oh, fantastic.
One of my team actually does BSL. So I think there's a lot of work we can do around that and supporting the disabled community. It's a fantastic sport for body and mind for everyone. So I think getting that message out and supporting people to take part. I think I'm trying to support you to take part, Rob.
Oh, right. Yes, no, definitely. I climbed many, many years ago. A good friend of mine from school was a qualified instructor, and he took me to some cliffs in Devon, and it was just after we left school. So it was pretty scary, but it was good fun. I was terrible at it, but
I'm trying to get our designer that we work with to climb, and he keeps backing out, but I'm going to get him.
Perhaps, yeah, Rob and I can come and climb sometime. Yeah, that'd be really fun.
Yeah.
The inclusion thing is really interesting. I think one of the things that came out when we were going through our design process was we don't want just to have, rippling bodies, half naked on a wall as part of the kind of the design of the whole, even if it's, a representation of that. We want to, be more inclusive in what we represent as the climbers. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes. No, that's really important to me and to us at the ABC. We seek to represent diversity in everything, even if it's an illustration, as you say, because it's there's that sort of default muscular white male thing which can happen, and particularly in sport. And so even if we've got an illustration with a tiny, little person showing perspective or scale on a climbing wall, we just want to make sure that person isn't some sort of shop mannequin, really.
Yeah, I'm completely with that. I walk past a Pilates studio near where I live, and all the pictures on the outside of these very honed, very beautiful people, and I'm like, I'm never going in there.
I know. It's totally off-putting.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not fun to. So I'm very much aligned with that. So, what's exciting you then about the future? What's exciting you about what you're doing with the ABC and other pieces?
Fewer accidents, better reported. Okay. No, I think it's a really brilliant industry. It's very positive. I think everyone is very passionate. The more climbing walls I go in, and the people I work with, from front of desk to management to people running the competitions, there is such excitement and passion, and that's what makes it amazing to work in as an industry. And so I'm really excited about working with people across all the climbing walls more. I mean, we meet as our board team or our staff team, and we have a long, difficult meeting or challenging meeting, and then we go climbing, because that brings the team together, and it's just such a amazing thing for the mind and body. So I think just enjoying, I love being in an industry where people actually really enjoy what they do, and can do what they enjoy doing at work even better. So I think it's about getting more people to access it and enjoy it as well, and people from different backgrounds to do that. It's really exciting.
That's amazing. So I'm curious, how many people are who climb in the UK? What are the stats on that? Do you know?
Yeah. Well, we work with Sport England, and we use their active lives data, and it's approaching 1 million regular climbers, I should say, in England every year. So, and regular climbers are coming in a couple of times a week. So really engaged audience, and lots of people trying it as well every week.
That's amazing. And do you get involved with the kind of the elite end of it, and the kind of because I've noticed watching the Olympics and stuff, it's become a huge the speed climbing and all the different kind of varieties.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So we had a gold medal in Paris for the Toby Roberts.
I saw, amazing.
So our industry partners are the British Mountaineering Council, and they have GB Climbing that runs the elite comp side of things, but we work closely with them.
It's that building of community, isn't it? It's that connecting with people who are like yourself. I see that a lot across different things. People I'm speaking to on this podcast, I've met through a community of founders in London, and that's been really interesting to see, and to find like-minded people. So I think people really thrive or are looking for that more and more these days in the disconnected world we live in. So
yes, Yes, please.
Last couple of questions. So, what do you wish more people understood about what you do and what you're trying to achieve? Is that
my members or anyone?
Anyone, I guess, or members, I guess, would be a clear and obvious one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose, in terms of what we'd like the general public to understand, I suppose we in terms of our accreditation scheme that we've launched in the last year, we've always referred to the Food Standards Agency scheme or program, if you like. So if you go to a restaurant and you get your food standards, don't you, stars from 1 to 5, and we always said we'd never go into a restaurant that only had one star, right? So if you are ABC accredited, then it's a safe and well-run facility. And I think having the customers or end user climbers understanding what good looks like and what to look out for is going to be a really positive thing, because that will drive standards and their experience ultimately. And in terms of climbing walls, what do I wish they knew? How useful we are, how much work we do behind the scenes, and it is that, when you're a national trade association, there's a lot of work that does go on behind the scenes, and it's sort of staving off nascent threats. Yep. And believe me, those emails come in reasonably thick and fast, and some of these things that are ones that don't come to anything, and but it's just having us as at the shield, sort of protecting the industry from things that could make things harder, is, I think, really valuable. And in the conference, we have an annual conference in Sheffield every September. And last year, my sort of metaphor for the ABC's work was we're like MI5. So you don't know what's going on, but we're there, in fact, I nicked their mission statement and just sort of put our name in there because it's basically exactly the same, but you don't know what's happening because we've actually already saved you from it. So,
so a shield then.
Shield, yes. MI5, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Very nice. And so, last question. So, something I always ask people who come on, and it's probably a bit weird, but anyway, if ABC had a theme song or was a band or a song, what would you choose?
Well, I spent a bit too much time on this.
You did say that you overthought this one.
But I've got 2, Rob.
You've got 2? Okay, fine. Hit me. ABC by Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. Very good.
Obviously. I thought it was a bit obvious, though. So, and I did say I spent time thinking about it. So, and then the other one, and this is, I'll play it and explain why.
I can't hear it. I can't hear anything.
You're showing your age or lack of. The A-Team.
I can't
hear it. Oh, well, we can play it. We can play it.
It's like that one.
The A-Team.
Yes, I love the A-Team.
An amazing team.
I used to love the A-Team as a kid. Yeah. That's fantastic and very fitting as well. So
we've got an amazing team, and that does make life and work so much better, and makes what we do better as well. So, and working with you guys. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Kath, thank you so much for being on the pod. Really appreciate the chat. Good luck with the future of ABC. And thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Good to chat.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Old Street Labs podcast. We'd love to hear from you. So connect with us on LinkedIn or on our website at old.st.